Bienvenidos a Anáhuac TV, estamos en Anáhuac en Punto. Yo soy Frisia Macin y el día de hoy me da mucho gusto que estén con nosotros porque terminando nuestro seminario de cine de la Facultad de Comunicación pudimos recibir a nuestros invitados de la Vancouver Film School. Está con nosotros Michael Baser y Rick Drew, que ellos pues vinieron a impartir también una conferencia con nosotros. Welcome to the Anáhuac University.
Thank you.
How are you?
Oh, great.
Wonderful, thanks.
Okay, we are happy to receive you here, and I'll tell the people about his career in film and television. Bueno, déjenme contarles que Michael Baser es un experimentado guionista que antes de llegar a la Vancouver Film School disfrutó de una exitosa carrera en la televisión con el prime time estadounidense y también en la parte cinematográfica durante más de 35 años. Hemos tenido la oportunidad de verlo trabajar como escritor, productor ejecutivo de clásicos como Jeffersons, también Three's Company y Full House, y también por otro lado está con nosotros Rick Drew, que has escrito más de 100 horas de televisión para series como MacGyver, los Mutantes X, Lonesome Dove, y también ha desarrollado series de televisión para Universal Televisión y también para Warner Brothers. Entonces estamos muy contentos de que ellos estén aquí con nosotros. Vamos a comenzar con la entrevista. Which have been the main change in the screenwriting for the television and filmmaking in the last years?
By far, opportunity. I think there's much more opportunity now for screenwriters than ever before because the changes in delivery systems, be it the streaming services or the internet or cable or satellite, the outlets for people buying material and the demand for new material has just exploded. So I think that's the biggest change. The way we write scripts, the way we tell stories, that has not changed as much. It's just really how the marketplace has changed.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with what Michael said. I think, too, it's been increasingly a global marketplace. The industry used to be really centralized in Hollywood and Los Angeles, and now, because of Netflix and these other streaming services that are emerging, like the one that Televisa is doing, and even the traditional American networks are starting to have streaming systems of delivery added on to their regular network programming. The new Star Trek series that's being done in the States is being offered as a streaming service by CBS and Warner Brothers. And so and that's also going to be on Netflix internationally. So all of the platforms are crossing over, and TV in all languages is becoming increasingly globalized.
Yeah, and it's more opportunity. More product is needed and more opportunity for people who want to be writers, also for people who want to be directors and actors and anybody who wants to be in the industry because there is so much more production. It's a great time, it really is. Well, ask your question. I don't want to talk without the question.
What it takes to create a successful story for television and filmmaking nowadays?
The same that always made a good, successful screenplay or television show before, character and story. It's always about the people. We, the viewers, when we're watching a show, right, we relate to these characters on a very strong level. So if you think about a show that you like, right, or a movie that you enjoy, and if you thought about it, why you enjoy these films or television shows, you'd have to think, well, it's because of the characters, because on some level I am rooting for these people, I care about them. And so as writers, it's our job to create these characters and to make them irresistible to the audience.
Yeah, we relate to characters because we relate to them emotionally and become engaged in their fates. And another thing just further about the difference in how television is evolving and changing is like Netflix is doing original Spanish language programming in Mexico, co-productions. They're opening branches of Netflix in Japan and in different places because they recognize the importance of delivering the stories of the people in the region.
And the culture.
And the culture. And so there's going to be a lot more opportunity to tell Mexican stories to Mexicans. And I think that's really critical. And that's one thing we stress at the Vancouver Film School is even though we have students from all over the world, we encourage them to not tell American stories, but to tell their stories in a style that's become the American standard, that's more commonly accepted as a form of storytelling. People have that comfort zone in that kind of story, but you can use those structures and those concepts to tell the stories that are critical to your own people.
Yeah. In our programs, we have students from, I'd say 50% of our students are from the U.S. and Canada, but the rest of our students come from Mexico, Central America, from South America, Iceland, Germany. It's an international marketplace now, and our students kind of reflect the world now. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and the nice thing too is that they get to meet each other and learn about each other's cultures. And in a business that's increasingly reliant on co-production, that allows them to create both personal and business relationships that they can take into the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. How is it possible to create long-term and strong story for television? Say shortly, when you create a story for TV, how do you set the characters and situation in order to create 2 or more seasons?
Well, it's a good question. Well, I think part of it is increasingly that the television, both network and cable and streaming services, are asking for more narrative television, so that the season isn't just one story each week. It's one big story that's told in many chapters, and you're seeing more novelized sort of storytelling. It comes from having a very clear vision for each individual season and a bit of a hook at the end of the season so that it tells you there's more story to be told.
Okay.
But again, it's always about that character relationship with the audience. Michael was saying in our group that we just had here at your lovely university that TV is something that you invite into your home. It's a very personal thing that you invite characters into your home to share their stories. And I think it's become even more intimate now because we don't just watch TV on TV, we watch it on our computers, on our iPads, and our phones while we're commuting. And so there's a very personal relationship between our entertainment and our viewing of it. And I think that's part of what makes a show last, is creating that engagement that people relate to.
Okay. What are the new ways for storytelling in the new media?
New ways? Well,
YouTube, web series.
Yeah.
There's a number of ways you can tell stories in many different forms. It doesn't have to be a big blockbuster Game of Thrones type show.
Yeah, binge watching has kind of changed the way we write a little bit in how the story progresses. And I think social media has had a huge impact, again, on somehow ways we tell stories now, because there's so many, it's very hard to keep things a secret anymore, especially, in stories. So spoilers are such a big part now, unfortunately, for the writer, because we write something, we want the progression of the story to kind of to progress at the pace we want it to. But social media has an enormous impact, I think, now on the way people watch shows and what attracts them to shows as well.
And also, even while people are watching shows, they're live tweeting during the show. There are a lot of television shows where they'll have casts or producers or writers of the show live tweet interactively with an audience while they're watching the show. So there used to be an expression that they would call a popular series a water cooler show, meaning people would gather at work the following day after having watched it around the water cooler or the lunch table to talk about it. Now they're talking about it interactively during the show. Shows like Walking Dead and things like that are reliant on that level of intimacy in relation to the audience.
Okay. Why the new platforms as Netflix are being so appreciated for the media consumers today? Is it a technological issue or a generational?
Yeah, I think it's generational. I actually think it's more generational than anything else. I think the audience, I think it all started, and I'm speaking without giving it too much thought, but I think it kind of started with MTV. MTV really changed the way we see things, right? In the fast cutting, the amount of attention we were able to or willing to give a show or a piece of film. The fast-paced quality of MTV, I think, kind of spoke to the generation of that, maybe a generation 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Your
even,
parents'
right?
generation.
Your parents' generation, but it kind of changed viewing habits a great deal and how we see things, right? And television shows of the 80s and 90s kind of reflected that, you know, shows like Hill Street Blues and new NYPD Blues,
Vice.
right? Pardon me?
Miami Vice.
Miami Vice, they had a whole different MTV kind of look to them, and I think this is a progression towards that now. So I think what it is generational. I think people like to see their programming in a way that is not ties them to a certain hour or a certain day in their living room. You know, the beauty of television now is that this is a television, right? You know, and I carry it with me if I want to see a show, if I'm on an airplane, if I'm on a bus, right? All you have to do is take a subway, you know, and see the hundreds or thousands of people sitting on a subway car, and what they're doing, right? They're watching television, you know, they're interacting, you know, call it what you will, right? The cell phone, the smartphone has changed everything.
Yeah, and certainly at home and in Canada and in North America in general, and I'm sure it's the case here, there's an expression where they call people who don't watch cable, they call them cord cutters, meaning they're not tied into any cable system. They're not tied into watching commercial television at all. And part of what's happening with that and why the traditional networks are moving more and more towards the streaming services, they're trying to find a way to monetize making very expensive television, because cable has shown that you can do it without commercials.
Yeah.
And that's changing the nature of television entirely.
And now the big conglomerates, the Televisas, the Aztecas, right? You know, in our country, you know, the Foxes, whatever, these huge media companies have to play catch up now. And they are playing catch up. And you can see them scrambling. And that's why in Mexico specifically, you know, when we first started coming here to Mexico and doing writing workshops 8, 9 years ago, even 7, 6 years ago, people said to us, you know, when we offered screenwriting workshops, well, there really isn't much of a marketplace for screenwriters here in Mexico, because most of the programming in television is just, you know, telenovelas. And there's no interest at that time to do anything but that. But now, because of the competition of all these streaming services and satellite services, and it's fantastic. Now these huge companies have got to change with the time and start offering programming that people want. You know, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
The audience ultimately demands the TV they get. And I think that's what's happening now all over the world. People have seen TV become increasingly cinematic, big shows like Game of Thrones. They're willing to spend $8 million US an episode to create something spectacular because they know there's an audience for it. And I think increasingly, when you think of the Spanish-speaking people, not only in Mexico, but throughout South and Central America and in Spain and everywhere, there's a vast language-driven audience that is totally underserved right now, are just waiting to hear their stories told in their own language. And that's something that we really look forward to encouraging with our students.
We have a lot of fun, okay?
Thank you
Okay,
so much.
thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Okay.
Y bueno, le decimos a nuestros televidentes de Anáhuac TV, les agradecemos que hayan estado con nosotros. Ellos son Michael Baser y Rick Drew, que son de la Vancouver Film School. Nos acompañaron el día de hoy en la Universidad Anáhuac. Los invito a que se queden con más noticias relevantes que tenemos de la universidad. Me despido, yo soy Frisia Macin y estamos al pendiente y en comunicación para más detalles de nuestra facultad.